The number of cases in the U.S. jumped again overnight to at least 102,000, with 1,600 deaths now. The U.S. now has more reported cases than any other country in the world. Nearly 45,000 of those cases are in New York State.
And some good news for the tens of millions struggling because of coronavirus. Those relief checks from the federal government could be in your hands in just 3 weeks. President Trump signing a $2 trillion relief bill on Friday. And some states are resorting to more drastic measures to stop the spread. In Rhode Island, police are stopping drivers with New York plates, telling them to quarantine themselves.
All right, today is Saturday, March 28th, 2020.
We should also explain before we get into that, like, what the purpose of this is, because I think some people might have not have heard.
Yeah, I saw a couple of comments, like, what does this have to do with Fstoppers?
Yeah.
So, yeah, let people know why.
Yeah, so basically, we are completely locked down here in Puerto Rico. Our curfew and our lockdown have just been extended until Easter, so April 12th. I don't know that we're even out that day. Maybe it's like the 13th. I suspect we're going to be locked down even longer than that. But we thought it would be interesting, since we can't leave the house, we can't interact with anybody, we can't make like our typical photography videos. We can do some like videos on software and stuff, but like we don't have any new gear here. We're kind of truly locked down. We thought it would be interesting to make these diaries so that years from now, maybe decades from now, more than anybody, for us, we could go back and review our state of mind and what did we predict. What were we reading in the media? Was everything that was being told to us true?
Yeah.
And we just thought it'd be something interesting to do and give people a break from traditional media.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that we are experts in any of the topics we're talking about.
Not at all.
We're just kind of having like a layman's conversation.
Yeah, and we're trying to make it very easy to see which videos have to do with coronavirus and which videos have to do with photography. So
basically, if it's us sitting in a couch, sitting here, and there's a picture in the middle, and it has a date, that's not our typical content.
So if this isn't your type of thing, don't watch these videos. But for a lot of people, they seem to really be appreciating it. We've been getting a lot of nice comments, and thank you to all the new patrons as well who are donating money. We're going to then donate that on to people in Puerto Rico.
Today I'm here to express my profound gratitude to the dedicated service members who will soon be on the front lines of this fight. In a few moments, the crew of the Navy hospital ship USNS Comfort, which is really something, will embark for New York City, where they will join the ranks of tens of thousands of amazing doctors, nurses, and medical professionals who are battling to save American lives.
All right, looking at these numbers, every day I'm kind of saying the same things. Things are getting faster and faster. That's what happens with exponential growth. Coronavirus cases, 656,000. Deaths, we just recently passed 30,000 deaths worldwide. And then in the United States, we probably will pass 2,000 deaths as we are filming this. Puerto Rico, as of right now, it says 100 total cases and 3 deaths. Obviously, we all believe that's not accurate. There has to be many more people in Puerto Rico who have that. But I would also bet that maybe Puerto Rico has some of the fewest cases of any state in the United States, simply because we were some of the first to shut down quickly.
We're also an island, so maybe it's fair to compare us to Hawaii, maybe. I think technically Hawaii is further away from the United States than we are from Florida.
So Hawaii currently has 120 cases. Again, I would think there'd be way more in Hawaii as well.
So they have had 0 deaths reported, but they have 20 more people infected than us. Somebody brought up the interesting point that we were probably talking about weeks ago, but like all of the cases and deaths that we're seeing now, especially the new cases, when you see new cases in any of these columns, realistically, those people caught the virus 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because they're saying it's like 2 to 14 day incubation period.
Yep.
So when you see these ballooned numbers, kind of goes back to my toilet paper theory, I think a lot of people caught this 2 weeks ago.
But it's not just that. I mean, think about how long ago people caught it who are dying today. You know, I don't
Might
think...
have been 3 weeks ago.
Or a lot longer than that. I mean,
ago.
people are talking about people being on ventilators for 2 weeks and then dying. How long does it take you to go on the
I
ventilator?
watched a really interesting video last night from another doctor, and he answered the question that I had, I think, yesterday. He said if you are at the stage where you get put on a ventilator, it's about a 50-50 chance that you'll come out of that.
Wow.
So if you're on a ventilator, that is very, very bad news.
Does that have to do with coronavirus or ventilators in general?
Coronavirus specifically. So he talks about when you stop being able to breathe on your own, you've literally exhausted yourself. That's when the ventilator goes in there, and he's like, at the moment, again, these are all numbers we have to take into account, statistics we have to take into account. He was saying it's a 50-50 chance that you'll come out of that.
I was hearing Cuomo saying the other day that if you are on a ventilator for more than a week, you have a very small chance of surviving anyway, outside of...
It's doing so much lung damage.
Oh, is that it?
I suppose.
I would just think you have significant lung damage to be on a ventilator. Another number that we have passed today that is very significant, Italy's death toll passed 10,000 this morning. So 10,000 deaths in
Did I
Italy.
read that yesterday? They had 1,000 deaths yesterday. It was the highest number recorded.
And here is a sign of the times. Pope Francis praying alone in an empty St. Peter's Square.
And we prepare ourselves now to enter into this most sacred moment. There are millions of people joining all over the world together to pray at this moment for the end of the coronavirus pandemic.
While you're looking that up, and I just mentioned the ventilators, I do want to make something clear. I was completely wrong yesterday when I said they were making rooms negative pressure so that would naturally inflate the lungs.
That seemed a little crazy to me.
I kind of went down this road and misspoke, and in my mind I was trying to make sense of the negative pressure. Apparently it is to actually reduce the spread of infection. They are reducing the pressure in the room, but I want to make clear, and I want to be honest, if I say something that's totally wrong, I want to come back and clarify that. So negative room pressure does not necessarily help you with breathing. It's more for the sterilization of rooms outside. Depending on who you listen to, we are 2 weeks to a month behind Italy. Yeah. And right now, all of our numbers are going up. I mean, if you look at the daily death and draw the trend line, that is definitely going up.
Japan is turning to new containment measures this morning after witnessing a surge of new infections. There are now more than 2,000 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Japan. 60 new cases were confirmed overnight in Tokyo, which is rolling out a stay-at-home order in an effort to limit person-to-person contact.
Something else that people were pointing out, I don't know if we were a little confused yesterday or what we were saying was true, but no, we just didn't clarify. People kept saying in the comments yesterday that the stimulus money is not for 4 months. It's just for like a one-time payment. But I think a lot of what we were talking about was the unemployment.
Yes.
And that people could potentially make more money going on unemployment than they do working.
I mean, this is a disastrous bill. Right? Nobody, at least somebody who calls himself a Republican, should be voting for it. Look, I can see why the Democrats would be voting for this. This is right up their alley. This is more government, right? Big increase in government. So most Democrats at least tell you that that's what they want. But how can a Republican who campaigns for smaller government, limited government, say that he's in favor of this bill? It makes no sense. I mean, if the government should be running massive deficits and bailing everybody out and spending all this money when times are bad, well, then why shouldn't they do it when times are good? I mean, if government spending solves problems, why doesn't it solve all the problems? Why is it just when there's a really bad problem, we need government spending, but if it's a small problem, we don't? The fact of the matter is, if big government spending works during a crisis, then it works all the time. And if it doesn't work all the time, then it doesn't work during a crisis.
We know personally several people, maybe now we're hearing dozens of people that are actually debating this concept. Like, it might make sense to still lay off their workers to, play this game. And it's not like it's weird when you talk about these games because it's like it might be in the benefit of both people. Although part of this bill is supposed to help. Is there a loan forgiveness part in this if you keep your employees employed? This is very confusing because I'm seeing CPAs writing stuff, and there seems to be two different types of loans that you can get if you're a business owner, and I still don't understand it entirely because I'm reading conflicting things. Have you?
Do not take anything that I'm about to say as fact. Look into it yourself. But the bill seems to say that if you own a business and you have either employees or private contractors in the past, you have to have tax returns done that show that you've done this, then you can apply for an SBA loan and you will receive a $10,000 check within 3 days from the time that you apply for the loan.
Okay.
And this check will come apparently directly from the government, and this check will be forgivable if you spend the $10,000 on very specific things. It's like rent. That may not even be one. Payroll is one, like paying private contractors is one. It's basically the government trying to keep people from firing their employees and their private contractors. Keep in mind, though, that when you do this, it appears to be a loan at the beginning, and then maybe sometime in the future, you're going to be able to send proof that you spent the money correctly.
Okay.
And then it would be forgiven, just the $10,000. But then the loans that they're giving out too are massive. Like I think up to $1 million or $5 million or something. And this is where I have some friends who are trying to get as big of a loan as possible just to be cash heavy during this crazy time.
And do those have interest rates?
Yes, and I believe the interest rates are supposed to be below 4%. I'm just repeating what I've seen in another video.
I have something here, and again, take this with a grain of salt. They said there's 2 relief packages for small businesses. One is the SBA loan. They're saying up to $25,000. You said 10?
$10,000 was forgivable. That's what I thought I saw.
This said unsecured at 3.75% and up to $2 million with collateral.
Okay.
And then this other one, I don't know what this is. It's a WIP loan to cover payroll for 8 weeks as long as you haven't laid anyone off your payroll. This loan is fully forgivable, and you may not be able to apply for this right away or something. I don't know. If there's 2 different loans here, it seems very confusing, but maybe you've watched more current videos.
Well, you know, it is confusing, but like I predicted a few days ago, I'm now starting to see all the YouTubers coming out and like, here's how to get free money, and here's what I'm going to do with the money.
And do they outline it well enough to where it's like a step-by-step process?
The video that I sent you does outline it pretty well, but I think it was also filmed before the bill was actually released.
Now, how do you apply for the loan? Let's just go through that together right now. So this right here is the page you're going to see when you click on the link down below. I honestly, I wish this was an affiliate link, but it's not, okay? I get no benefit by you clicking on this link other than it makes me happy that you're gonna get some money, hopefully. That's the goal, right? Apply online. Do this early because I think their websites and servers and stuff are probably gonna start crashing if too many people do this. Literally go over here to downloadable business forms and just click on business loan application.
I don't know how it works with the loan. You know, it's like you have to take out some sort of loan and then maybe a portion of it could be forgivable in the future. But I could just see a lot of people
I think for a lot of
business
business owners, like my parents, they're starting to say like, you know, my parents are in their 70s. They have a dental practice that they lease the building, but all the inner workings of it are theirs. You know, it's their collateral. But they're like thinking, and I haven't talked to them in a day or two, but like I know it's in their mind of like, should we take out these loans at our age, or if we're going to be locked down for months and the government's going to have to keep passing this and we don't know if it's forgiven, is now the time to just pack up and just call it a day and shut down, retire and shut down a business. And I know there's probably a lot of business owners out there that are thinking the exact same thing. Like, if this isn't forgivable, and I don't know that that's a good idea or not, like that still might be a really bad decision for our government. I don't know enough about these payments. We all look back 2008, and a lot of people, maybe the majority of people, say what we did back then was wrong. You know, we bailed out all of these corporations and everything. But I don't know what I feel about the new bills today, but I know a lot of people are probably wondering, you know, do I take this gamble, especially when we don't know how long, you know, our businesses are going to be shut down, and keep bankrolling my payroll to all of my employees?
Yeah.
Because I imagine that $25,000 isn't going to go very far for a lot of different types of businesses that have a lot of employees still under 500.
We're thinking about certain things. Some people would like to see New York quarantined because it's a hot spot. New York, New Jersey, maybe one or two other places.
So there's a few things I just want to openly discuss with you because it's messing with my mind, right? And it's this idea that we've had a couple of videos of Bill Gates on our channel the last few days. And Bill Gates seems to be saying that he believes China's numbers.
Yep.
And so I guess what I was thinking about last night that just still blows my mind is this idea that how can China have numbers that are so low and people for Bill Gates to be saying that he believes them when there's a few really strange things that have happened with this outbreak. The first being that China had no lead time. Because it hit them first, they didn't have the advantage that a lot of countries had where they said this thing's coming and we need to prepare. You also have it taking place in a place like Wuhan, which is 1 million people more than New York City. So we're talking like, I think it's 9 or 10 million people.
Yeah.
So in America, they're calling New York City as ground zero, right?
Yep.
It's the hardest hit area in America so far. Now, obviously, I don't know enough about Wuhan. Maybe they don't have as big of airports. I have to imagine they do. But you have China with a place that's bigger than New York City. You have the largest population in the world in China. They're under a completely different type of government. We all know about the Communist Party of China. And realistically, when the first cases came out of this wet market, they had 3 to 6 weeks of people getting infected before I would imagine anyone even knew that there was a virus outbreak.
I know.
And so I just have a really hard time wrapping my head around China's response because people like Bill Gates and the numbers on the websites we're reading, a lot of people just say China's not to be trusted at all. But we have a lot of readers that are from China, and they seem to say, no, we do have it contained. But when I just go all the way back to like November, December, and I just think about the situation the rest of the world has dealt with and think that China had no prep for this, and they also didn't even know there was an outbreak. How in the world can their numbers be so small?
I know. China, the entire country, claims to have around 80,000 cases. New York City, as of today, has over 50,000 by itself.
Yeah.
So you're right. How is that possible at all? And something that points to what you're saying to be true. Did you read that China opened all their movie theaters back and then closed them 24 hours later?
I've been reading some reports that China's a little worried that there's a second surge happening right now. And there's a lot of debate on some of their healthcare workers are getting sick a second time. Some people are saying that maybe they never got over the virus the first time and they got a little bit better and now the symptoms are worse. There's other people that are speculating that there is everyone's been saying there's like 2 strains going around. We were talking about this weeks ago, right? There's like a weak strain and then a stronger strain. They're speculating that like, is China not containing it as well? Is having the curfew and the lockdown good? But then the second that you open everything back up, it just piles back in and everyone gets reinfected. Are there 2 strains? Are people actually not getting over this? There's a lot of debate about the antibodies that you build. Are they actually able to protect you from a second infection? And in some cases, we all compare this to the flu. But in other ways, this isn't the flu. Like, people don't have the SARS, what does SARS stand for? Severe acute respiratory syndrome.
Yeah.
So people who get the flu, they don't die from like one mechanism, as far as I understand, the way that SARS affects the body. The SARS is killing everyone exactly the same way. We've shown those pathways. We've talked about all those videos. And so maybe we aren't able to build an antibody the same way that you could for some of these other, infectious diseases. We just simply don't know yet. And China would be the first place that we would find this information because they were the first hit and the people there have had it the longest.
Yeah. Well, I saw an article on, I think, CNN, and it was about how we make flu vaccines. Did you see this link I sent you this morning?
I have not really watched anything in the news today. Today's been, like last Saturday, a day where I have taken a break from everything.
Enjoying Tiger King.
We will get to that in a minute. But so how is the flu vaccine made?
So they take the virus, the flu virus, they take a fertilized chicken egg,
okay,
put it in the fertilized chicken egg, and then as the chicken grows in the egg, it creates antibodies for it. They then open the egg up, suck the virus out, kill the virus somehow, and then that is what they give to people. So 1 egg equals 1 vaccine.
That's it.
So there are these videos of these
chicken farms, or
well, it's like, it starts at a chicken farm, but then it goes into these crazy things that look like they're from the future. Where they just have thousands of eggs and all these computers
like
with
incubators or something, and they're growing all of this.
Yeah, it's so creepy. I just never had any idea. But basically, this article was explaining why you can't do that with COVID-19. It wouldn't work.
Well, one of the videos that was posted yesterday is from a South Korean doctor called Dr. Kim. I don't know what his last name is. It's all in Korean, but luckily it's subtitled, so you can play it back at like 2x, and this 40-minute video can be played back in 20 minutes. And South Korea is one of those places where they've really seemed to reduce the curve and everyone's back to normal. And there's a few things in this video that are very alarming to me. Like, I don't speak Korean, but I have confirmed some of the questionable things by doing Google Translate just to confirm that the subtitles weren't wrong. And one of the big ones that he says that this vaccine is going to take 10 to 15 years to develop.
Oh my gosh.
새로운 병균의 백신 개발은 10년 내지 15년 걸리고 돈은 1조 원이 들어요. 이게 지금 100일도 안 된 바이러스고 이제 유전자 안지도 2개월밖에 안 됐어요. 미국 알레르기 감염병 연구소의 이제 소장 안토니 파우치가 얘기를 했단 말이에요. 빠르면 모든 게 성공적으로 잘 진행이 된다면, 그러니까 우리가 백신 임상 시험을 건강한 성인 일상부터 시작해서 쭉 3상까지 가는데 순조로이 되면 18개월이다. 그 모든 일이 순조로이 됐을 때 얘기거든요. 근데 만약 그 미국이나 중국이 백신 개발에 성공했다고 하더라도 다른 나라에 백신을 한 알이라도 줄까요? 미국 인구가 3억 2천인가요? 굉장히 많잖아요. 그거 단기간에 미국에서 자체 생산해서 그거 놓기도 불가능할 거예요. 결국 이제 우선순위를 누굴 먼저 놓을 거냐.
So that's scary. But then there's other things that, like, I don't want to get in a conspiracy theory or anything, but there's just a lot that the World Health Organization has told us, and the CDC, which is an American company, and what our government has told us, and what our news media has told us, and that is we should not all be buying and wearing masks. That is like ingrained in the message that they have been pushing. Even to this day, I think they say the whole public does not need to wear masks. But this doctor in South Korea is like, yes, everyone should be wearing masks. That's what we did. That's what all of Asia did. And I think he even acknowledges that Western culture looks down on this practice. But he attributes that because it has such a long incubation period of infected people that don't show symptoms being able to infect others. He contributes the masks is like one of the main reasons that they aren't all getting sick and dying. And so it just kind of frustrates me, because why is the US government and our agencies and even the World Health Organization saying that, masks do not help people who are not infected yet? I mean, maybe the way that's worded is technically scientifically true.
Yeah.
But it feels like maybe we were just so low in inventory, and the fear was that medical workers will not be able to get masks. But when you see the masks that the medical workers are using, I mean, they're in full body suits.
Yeah.
They have things that are way more advanced and way more protective than the normal masks that everyone in Asia is wearing.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like, I don't want to say we've been lied to by our government, but I think there needs to be a lot of accountability held there if a lot of these doctors in countries that have seemed to contain the virus are saying that masks actually do stop the transmission of this
It
virus.
would make sense if it's coming from people coughing and sneezing and coughing on their hands and touching things, and of course having something to block that. But it could literally be anything. It doesn't have to be some.
But the narrative that's been out there is like, you don't have to put rags over your face, you don't have to wear a mask. Like, that doesn't show. I mean, how many times is Sanjay Gupta? Everyone on the news is saying masks are not necessary. In fact, do not take them so that our health workers have them.
Yeah.
But that's not what these other countries are coming out and saying. And I just feel like that's why I like these conversations, It's because I can be wrong one day, but then I think a lot of people are probably asking these same questions. When I see the people in the airport 2 weeks ago when I was in Miami, 5% of people had the masks, and everyone looks at them like, oh my gosh, they have it. And there was this stigma. But perhaps they were the smartest people in the airport.
Well, times are a-changing because I was out today. I went to our little grocery store here.
Yeah.
Everybody's not all the patrons, but the employees all had masks and gloves on. Many of the people wandering around up there have masks and gloves on.
Not just the workers,
now.
though.
No, people in our neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Saw like families driving golf carts. All the family has masks and gloves on. So
maybe it's becoming less stigmatized.
Yeah, I
think
talked to my
dad's
mother-in-law.
sending me some dental masks, so we'll have something if we need it. Mainly just for the grocery store. Like I think I'm fine in the house as long as you aren't tracking anything in.
I probably am.
Another thing this doctor said that I thought was interesting is he just made it sound like this isn't going to be over anytime soon. And again, it goes back to our ideas of the president and Bill Gates saying like 6 to 8 weeks. But a lot of these people, and I trust Korea in some sense because they've had these SARS outbreaks 15 years ago. Like they prepared for it. They got all the medical facilities and they got the tracking apps. So when you go in and you're tested positive, they make you have this app on your phone. And through the app, they require that every day you put in your symptoms. And if you don't do that, they know maybe you're not taking the quarantine seriously. And they can track you and see.
Dead.
Yeah, and they can track you and they can see like who you've come in contact with. And that brings up the fear Americans have about like surveillance among the government.
Yeah.
And I think that is something we as a nation and as a world are going to deal with more. Mark my words, there's going to be legislation that comes out of this in the next year that's going to limit our freedom. But you have to say, is the freedom worth the cost, And is the cost, a lot of people die because we're not monitoring everybody and we're not able to test everybody. But the freedom is that the government doesn't know where we are at all times. That's a tricky situation to deal with, but that's what they are doing in South Korea is they are monitoring everyone. Their trace contacting is working really, really well. They know exactly who got it from who, and they can quarantine everybody. And it seems like the idea behind the idea that South Korea and some of these countries are saying that will save the world is that we all need to go on lockdown for like a month or two, and then everyone that has it will get over it, or they will die, and the virus will fail to spread. The problem with this logic, because this is what everybody on our channel keeps saying, just do this and we'll be okay, is you have to be 100% thorough with it. What happens in a small area in Africa or a small area in South America or some little town in Alabama and they don't follow protocol and people are slowly dying and slowly infecting themselves and then suddenly the world is like, we've cured it. We haven't cured it, but like we prevented it from spreading. And then 2 or 3 months later, all these people that are just still infecting each other fly to all these other countries. It just feels like we're at a point now to where no matter how much we contain it in the world, the resulting number of infected cases, although low, will still always be greater than the number of infected cases that started off in Wuhan.
One.
Yeah.
Right. If there's
or
one
just say
person on the
Wuhan
planet.
was 5. Maybe 5 people got it in this market somehow all at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't know how many people there are, but it just seems maybe the argument is we'll be able to have all the tests and we'll be able to track everybody and we can contain it so much better. I understand that idea, but I still don't understand how everyone just expects every country in the world to just shut down, give real numbers, and everyone to follow. I mean, we're talking about a worldwide policy. I don't think that's possible.
Here's what I don't think people are truly considering. Right now in Puerto Rico, I would say we have one of the strictest lockdowns
in the United States.
In the United States, but maybe in the world too. I'm sure Italy's probably more hardcore. China's probably more hardcore. But like we're one of the strictest in the world, I would assume. But there are still so many people that have to go to work. Can you imagine what would happen if the power went out and the government was like, you cannot go into the power plant and turn it back on? You are not allowed to do it. So now we're waiting for weeks or months without power. What about people who require medication? They're just going to go without their medication? What about people who are in the hospital already? Doctors and nurses are not going to be able to care for people in the hospital. We're just going to have to kick everyone out of hospitals.
No.
It's not physically possible to actually shut down the entire world. And if one person has it, somebody even said something, I don't know if you said it or Katie said it, people were saying that if you have it on your hands and you buy frozen food and then put it in the freezer and a year later you take the frozen pizza out, it will thaw and still be alive on the frozen pizza box.
Well, viruses technically, biologically, are not alive.
Well, active,
but they,
whatever.
yes, they could potentially still infect somebody. I don't know that I've read that. Obviously, we have smallpox, and we have some of the most deadly viruses in the world in multiple research labs around the world. So when they say they've eradicated stuff, we still have them frozen, and the fear is always that those could be re-released.
I think smallpox is still in places around the world. People are still catching it, right? But
Yeah, I can't think of, is it polio? There's certain things that we have overcome as a world,
Right.
but they are still active, live, however you want to call it, in different labs. And so the fear is always that that could be, you know, a country like Russia falls apart, and like what happens to those labs and what happens to those specimens. I don't know if that's totally true, but if, you know, it does seem to, you know, stay virulent in colder climates for much longer periods of time. That's another thing this doctor said. The Korean one was like, there's a good chance that like we feel like the southern hemisphere is not being affected as much. So there's a chance that we are about to slow down, but then the southern hemisphere is going to ramp up.
Yeah.
And then when it cools back, it comes back again, which is what everyone's been saying about most viruses and most flus, is they have a seasonality, you know. And I think people are a little hesitant to say that this virus will be slowed down by heat and moisture. Maybe it is here in Puerto Rico. Our numbers obviously look pretty good. Who knows why? But I keep thinking this is not going to be a short-term thing. It feels like it's going to keep, you know, coming and going, or we're going to have to shut down our governments, you know, our businesses and economy for a long time. And then I'm reading things from people who seem like they know what's going on, and they're saying it's a lot longer for a vaccination than maybe even a year or two.
You know, I've lost a couple children. I've lost a wife. And it is incredibly difficult to go through, and it's harder to go through when you haven't had an opportunity to be with the person while they're dying. My mom, my dad, I was able to be with them and lie in bed with them, and they took their last breaths. My son, I was able to do that. My deceased wife, I was not able to do that. I was not able to be there.
Yeah. Have you seen this article in Bloomberg that's talking about people in the food prep business getting the virus?
No.
Like some of our biggest chicken producers, they're finding coronavirus there. And so it's starting to like, you know, I had a friend of ours that runs a blog that I was talking about a week ago. He was like, I think the biggest fear is that a lot of countries that produce grains and countries that live on very little, they spend $1 a day to survive, that those countries and people are going to potentially die. There could be millions of deaths because of starvation. I don't think that's going to happen in westernized countries. But when you start reading these stories about what happens if all the Tyson chicken, there's like a 5% chance. You know, we have like listeria outbreaks, like with ice cream, and everyone's like, get rid of all the ice cream. Imagine if we start saying like, there's a chance, even just a chance, that there could be contamination in our food. And I don't know that anyone yet is confirming that you can actually get it from food, but we can get it from handling. What if it's frozen chicken in the freezer and there was all these people prepping it? Like, that's what this article is exploring. And I don't want to like spread false news or anything. Like, we should look into this. But that's another area where we just don't know yet.
Have you heard of this cruise line that's currently stuck?
Good morning, Dana. The Zandam cruise ship has been trying to get to Florida, but it's now stuck off the coast of Panama. The cruise line says 4 passengers have died, while the number of people feeling sick is rising fast. Denied passage through the Panama Canal, the Zandam sits stranded at sea, with at least 2 people on board testing positive for COVID-19 and nearly 140 reporting flu-like symptoms. Passengers like Chris Joyner and his wife Anna are pleading for help to go home.
4 people are dead on the cruise.
Really?
There's dead bodies on the cruise and people are getting sick and they're like, we have to get off the cruise and no country will allow them to dock.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I mean, it seems like the most ridiculous Hollywood movie. People are holding up signs, help me, help us.
Yeah.
And they're trapped on a cruise ship.
Yeah, and I've heard some people say the cruise is great because you're all in these compartmentalized rooms, but I'm thinking you're still being served the food.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's been tests and studies where, like, the Princess Cruise Line, Not that many people came down with it. That's the theory.
A lot of people came down with it. What are you talking about? Like, if you look at the world numbers, the Princess Cruise Line has its own, it acts like its own country. The Diamond Princess Cruise had 712 people come down with the virus. That's more than the majority of countries in the world.
I'm trying to think if it was that cruise, because there's like 2 cruises, right?
There was one off the coast of California. Maybe that one didn't have as much.
Maybe
I believe
that's the
the
one I'm
Diamond
thinking of.
Princess was off the coast of Japan. So they had 712 affected people and 10 deaths on that cruise alone. Yeah, when you look at this, I'm looking at a list right now of, all the countries that have cases. It's way up there. It's way up there, and it's just a cruise ship.
Well, have you been reading these stories about, is it Rikers Island? It's the island in between like Queens and Manhattan where
No.
they have all the prisoners.
Okay.
Apparently Harvey Weinstein was in that prison and came down with coronavirus.
I heard he got
They're
it.
just saying it's gonna be awful. Like everyone in that prison, like guards are getting it and stuff. And I don't know where we are now.
Dude, this is the next conspiracy. Harvey Weinstein dies from coronavirus, and they're like, he's alive. He's chilling with Epstein.
I saw some, like Joe Rogan was talking about that the other day, wasn't he?
He's in maximum security.
Well, he's in Buffalo now.
Oh, did they move him to
moved
that
him. They
because
moved
of the
him.
corona?
He's in the hospital up in Buffalo.
We were talking about this yesterday. Imagine if you came up to him 4 years ago and said, I want to show you your future. Dying in a bed in prison for things you've already done. Right now, you're walking around, toast of the town, getting in limos, climbing out. People are waving to you and cheering. You're getting interviewed on the carpet.
On a little lighter note.
Lighter than Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah. Both of us, especially me, are big UFC fans, mixed martial arts. Conor McGregor has been coming out and doing these strange PSAs with a bunch of weird athletic puns and stuff about how, like, we got to get our head in the game and the only way we can beat this is by trying, like, weird stuff. He is calling for Ireland to completely shut down their airports.
Okay.
Our airports must shut. The only flights to take place is to be for our essential medical equipment or to bring our medical staff abroad back home to support. The airports must be shut for everything else.
And then I've been watching videos with Dana White, the Tony and Khabib fight. I believe this is the 5th time this fight has been on the books. It's been canceled 4 times for one reason or another. People are saying this fight is cursed. And Dana keeps coming out and saying he is going to make this fight happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching these interviews. He's quarantined in his house. He will not reveal where he is putting this fight on, but he's saying it's going to happen. People are speculating that he's found some country somewhere in the world that, has low cases or will allow him to fly his private jet in there. Yeah. It's going to be an empty room, and these 2 guys are going to fight each other, and it's going to, hopefully be the biggest fight of all time.
I'm going to try to pull off Tony versus Khabib on April 18th, and try to get some normalcy back in this country.
Man, the world would need this so desperately. If you can make this happen, man, this is something that we need. We need something to entertain our intellect right now, because this is crazy.
I agree with you, brother.
And do you know, with these 2 fighters in this weight class, will they be cutting a lot of weight? It'd be interesting to hear.
They do cut a lot of weight,
It's interesting to hear like what people will say about that, because that's got to weaken your body so much. I mean, there's people that argue we shouldn't be cutting weight anyway.
Yeah.
But with the coronavirus on top of that, it's just like, I mean, if one of those guys got sick, it would be disastrous for the UFC. There'd be so many people pointing fingers at them and saying, how dare you do this? And maybe there could be lawsuits. But the other thing I wonder is, like, what will the pay-per-view numbers and stuff be? Will it be the biggest thing ever because everyone's at home?
Right.
And there's no bars to go and see the fight for free? Like, everyone's got to... But then maybe the bars, don't they get charged a much higher rate?
Yeah.
So, like, if those are all gone, nobody's buying the $10,000 pay-per-view or whatever it could be.
Right.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens, because it is a very hyped fight. I don't follow wrestling, but was it like Stone Cold Steve Austin? And it was awful.
Card was upside down. 316 day is a day when you can open up a can of whoop ass on anybody you want.
I mean, I could see small children liking it, but when you watch professional wrestling, if that's what it's called, I think, on TV, there's a lot of old rednecks who like it.
Yeah.
Grown men like this strange, like childish sense of humor and fake fighting and stuff. I just don't understand it. And now it's just at another level of cringe right now. Have you seen the footage, I think it came out today or yesterday, of India and this quarantine and what the police are doing?
No, I mean, I've been off media for the most part for today.
So the Indian police, you know, people are always on the little like tuk-tuks and the little motorcycles and everything.
Little sidecar and stuff.
Yeah, they got all that stuff over there. And these cops are walking around with sticks and just beating people who they find riding around. It's like they stop them to let them know, like, hey, there's a quarantine, you're not supposed to be here. And then they just start beating them with sticks. And it's not like they're trying to hurt them. You know, they're not trying to like break
Is it
bones.
like punishment? It's like to get the word out that like, because in Singapore, you know, they cane people.
Yeah.
And I've also heard my buddy in Uganda, they're caning people there too. Maybe caning and beating are like similar phrases now. But maybe it's just to get the word out that like here in Puerto Rico, they're going to fine you or arrest you. Maybe in places like India, they're just like, yeah, you're going to get beat. And that's like,
I mean,
that's the deterrent.
Yeah.
Because you can't throw people in jail, right?
Right, I know. That would be the dumbest thing. Like, you'd be bringing outside people in and getting everyone infected.
Right.
So I kind of appreciate it, you know? I don't think that could ever happen in our country. I think people
kind of
pull
appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the fact, you know, with all the rules that we have and everything, I've talked to a lot of people who are like, screw that. Like, I'm not listening to these ridiculous rules. Right now, it's like if you have an odd number or an even number on your license plate, you can go out certain days and not others. They're like, if I need food, I'm going to go get food.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
But if there were cops that were about to beat you with a stick, you'd listen.
You'd at least change that license plate. You'd go get your buddies and be like, give me this license plate.
Exactly.
Parks and resorts will remain closed until further notice. And it should not be understated how significant this language is, as the Disney parks have never closed for an indefinite amount of time.
Well, I've been seeing videos. I've been trying to watch stuff from China just because I find it so fascinating. Like, I've never really dug into their government and the suppression of their people and the one media voice and all this, but there's like a lot of videos going on in Wuhan. I think yesterday there's a lot of videos coming out on Twitter where like it's like people are rioting against the police, and I can't figure out what's happened in these videos. But like they're overturning cop cars and like rocking ambulances, and they got the they have the crowd control and the riot gear.
I haven't heard of any of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the government's trying to suppress it all, but it looks like it's like an inner city, like two neighboring cities, Wuhan and like the other city. They're trying to get people to go back to work, from my understanding. Okay. They're trying to open up things, but it looks like maybe one town's police force is saying, we don't want you guys in Wuhan who had the virus coming back. And it looks like it might be like an inner police dispute instead of like the country. I think a lot of people are trying to make it look like the country is going to war with its people. But, you know, there's all those crazy riots in Hong Kong that have just, what's happened with that?
I think they're on hold for the moment.
Yeah, and so I just wonder what's going on. And if it ever gets to the point where the Chinese people feel like their government has lied to them, you know, in an extreme way, then like maybe there could be civil unrest. People are worried about that here in America. What happens when like we're shut down for 3 months and we have no more $1,200 handouts and the grocery stores are empty? And, you know, people are buying all these guns and stuff. Like, we just don't know how bad America can get. I think every time I look back, it's like when New York had the blackout and all these crazy things happen in New York City, it seems like everybody there comes together and they're okay. You would think the craziest stuff would happen in New York City, in Manhattan. But it's always Baltimore. It's always, you know, these other towns that, like, there's some racial thing that happens and the city's, like, on fire, you know?
Yeah.
But I could see, like, New Orleans is a good place. It's getting hit really hard. And, you know, after Katrina, like, there was just weird stuff that happens when you have 350 million people.
I just saw a New Orleans video today. They said they have a serious rat problem.
This video shows rats in the middle of the street, focused more on survival than social distancing.
The French Quarter is known for its food, its cuisine, so it's a place where if you're a rat, it's heaven.
I read an article that said we're about to run, like countries are about to run out of barrels and places to store the oil because so much oil is being produced. And it's like America has like maybe we're one of the largest oil producers in the world now.
I think we are. We might be the largest.
We might have like 30 days if we continue the path we're on, where we just won't have anywhere else to store oil. Saudi Arabia might have like 15 days, and maybe Russia has 10 days. Like, this article is pretty crazy, and I don't know how all that works, but people are thinking that oil could get down to like $1 a gallon. Right now, in like parts of the world and parts of the country, it's like $1.50 a gallon. That's some of the lowest gas I've seen.
Well, when I pulled all of my money out of the stock market 3 years ago, I was really smart, and I decided to invest some of my money in energy mutual funds that have a huge portion being in oil and oil companies. So that was real bright.
I made that mistake for a few months, and then I was like, I'm going to cut my losses and get out of this one.
Yeah.
That was a wise decision.
Yeah.
Speaking of wise decisions, I don't know if it was you that recommended this or 20 of my other friends that were like, have you seen The Tiger King?
It's not every day that a zookeeper went to prison for murder for hire.
There are more captive tigers in the U.S. than there are in the wild throughout the world.
Animal people are nuts, man. They're all crazy. I'm sure y'all got a story to tell.
This, would you call it a documentary or would you call it like a reality TV show? It's one of these Netflix documentary things. It has to be one of the craziest. I've been glued. Like, I think I'm on the last episode. I've watched all of them in one day.
That can't be healthy for you either. For you going
I'm getting
like
so much better. Like, I feel so good about myself, and it makes me think we're gonna get over this coronavirus. Like, I'm watching this saying like, we can do it.
Well, the amount of work that they put into this is crazy. I watch everything now from the perspective of a filmmaker and like, okay, how much would it cost to do this? How much work? How long would it take? How did they light this?
Getting the rights to footage from like depositions and like diary reading. Like, there's all this crazy stuff, and you're like, how did they find this, and how did they get the rights? How did they get a lot of people to agree to say and do some of the things in the
Every
show?
single person in the show looks horrible.
Yeah.
It's like they got people to promote their tiger farm, and then they went back in their past and found every single person that hates them and got them to spill dirt on that person. And then it becomes about the dirt and not about the tiger farm at all. I don't even know if we should be talking about this on our coronavirus journal.
Well, that's how I've been spending my time.
Yeah,
and
I
I
guess
think 10 years from now, I want people to be like, I've never heard of this documentary. Let me see what gave Patrick such a good mood that Saturday.
It's like a very high-end version of Jerry Springer, and I truly appreciate it. So,
is there any bit of you that's like, man, if I'm down in Tampa or Miami,
oh hell yeah,
I will
I'm
go to
going.
one of these places.
Yeah, I want to go.
There's
what's
one
the
in
main guy's
Myrtle
name?
Beach.
I know.
It was like 2 hours away from us. I never knew about this.
And that's the luxury one. That's the one you can pay like a few $100 and get like the private
like
tour.
$300 a person. I was like, wait, people in South Carolina can afford.
Dude, I'm doing that.
I don't know. $300 is a lot to spend for me to go to see some tigers and an elephant.
I'm gonna ride.
I guess
tiger.
after this show, I feel like maybe I would pay that. It'd be like our big weekend. Maybe that's what we'll do when we get out of quarantine. Next time I'm back in South Carolina, I'm gonna splurge.
We celebrate with a Tiger King. Absolutely. All right, I think we should end this. On
we're less than an hour, so that's good.
Yeah, it is good. If you guys would like to donate for this entire journal that we're going to be doing, you can sign up for our Patreon in the link in the description. 100% of the money that we raise during this time will be given to the local Puerto Ricans because they're not going to be receiving the same.
We're going to pick a charity.
Benefits. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we'll let you guys know what we decide when we decide to do it, and of course we'll donate our own money. And currently we've got a big sale running at fstoppers.com/store if you happen to be a photographer.
Also, always go to the description because I try to post as many links to some of the stuff we're talking about.
Okay.
So that it's not just me being like, this doctor says it's going to take 10 years to come up with a vaccine. You guys can check it out and give me your opinion on it too. So.
And go to Netflix and watch Tiger King.
Definitely Tiger King.
All right, see you tomorrow, guys.
Something has to be done. We're going absolutely bonkers. There's no way the human intellect could survive. This is nuts. I don't know. I just never thought anything like this ever happened in my lifetime.
And it will never again.
Yeah, we're too sophisticated for this stuff.
I think that in a year or two, we're going to look back on this thing and go, holy shit, we shut down the whole world for this thing.
Yeah, and we lost $25 trillion.
Yeah, exactly.
$25 trillion just from We don't even know if we're sick or not. Just somebody said we have a virus. We don't know.
Crazy.
But we have a virus, and now we lost $25 trillion.
Right. It's fucking madness. It's nuts.